Do I need my headphones, Greg?
Welcome, everybody. Greg Peterson with Urban Farm Nursery tonight. And I am here with Don Titmus. Hello, Don.
Hello, everyone.
And Janis Norton.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Janice. I'm also from the Urban Farm Nursery. Don happens to be from Bee Oasis. And together, all three of us make up the Urban Farm Permaculture program.
Yeah, well, us and a whole big bunch of other people that are in Phoenix.
yeah.
So tonight, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking introduction to permaculture, and we're also going to be talking about a permaculture design course. A permaculture design course is a 72-hour course that you can take, which is an introduction to permaculture. And we're also
expansive introduction.
An expansive, there you go. That's a good way of putting it. And we're also going to be sharing with you about Toby Hemingway's Permaculture City course that we recorded with him while he was still alive. And we have that available for people to take if you're interested. And we have a special deal for that. If you sign up in the next 3 days, you get $100 off of that course, which yeah, there you go. So we'll be talking about more of that at the end. Tonight, though, what I really want to do is I want to fill your mind with a different way of thinking. This is a call it regenerative way of thinking, but it's a way of thinking that has us live differently and be differently on the planet. And so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So get out a pad of paper, take some notes, and the recording will be available. We're going to be putting it up first thing in the morning for tonight's class. What's that funny look, Janice?
I just noticed that my cousin Laura is in the house today. She's
Oh,
she wrote in the chat room, my cousin Laura is in here. Way cool.
Nice. How cool is that?
Hi, Laura.
All right. Okay, cool. So let me, why don't you give me a 1-minute introduction of who you are, Don?
Okay, I'm Don. Is that what you need?
No,
Okay.
you're not done. You're done.
My profession started in London, England as a horticulturist. And so I am a nationally certified craftsman gardener by their determination. I got to America in the 80s and and I did landscaping and horticulture and different aspects of that in the Arizona southwestern deserts. So I had to relearn all my plants and relearn all kinds of new ways and drip systems and all kinds of new things, which is, very, very interesting at that time. In 2003, when I took my permaculture design course. So I've been going for almost 2 decades now.
Wow.
And right after I took my design course, I fortunately bumped into Greg at his house during a Dances of Universal Peace celebration.
Yeah, in the backyard there at the Urban Farm.
Dancing in the backyard, yep. And we collaborated and we got a group of people together. We started the Phoenix Permaculture Guild. Greg was already doing his tree program. He's already doing his urban farm tours, but I started my bits and pieces. I started doing tours. I started to become more educated in the education side of permaculture, which is where my passion was. And so I've taken 2 teacher trainings now and learned a lot. And I've worked in numerous states and over in England, I've done work over there too. And here in the Phoenix area.
Sorry about that, guy. That was my bad. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. My time here is now focused on water because water is the essence of life. So what's keeping me in permaculture right now is the water side of things, because Phoenix is getting drier and drier and drier. So we got to adapt. And fortunately, permaculture shows us the way. on how to adapt. So that's one of the things that I just love about permaculture. It's there when you need it. The ethics, the principles, the practices, they're all there. That's me in a nutshell.
There you go. Ms. Janis?
I'm Janice. I am the manager at the Urban Farm, and my pathway to get into permaculture was a unique one, I think. Maybe not so unique, but I was going into technology. I was going into science, and what I mean by that is more like the lab work was my direction. And on a whim, I took a class. I ended up going into a little bit more of agriculture studies with Greg, and I ended up taking a permaculture course. Now, prior to studying this, opening up this little world, the first couple of years of massive learning, I hadn't grown anything edible, let alone growing anything green that stayed green for a while. And the awareness of how much my lifestyle changed, my way of looking at everything outside and inside, and how they interact and how they work together, and my community of, and expanding what the concept of community was for me, which is what was my focus originally. It changed dramatically. And now I have a food forest in the backyard. And
by the way, that picture behind her is her food forest.
It's a part of my food forest.
4 years ago, it was a dirt backyard.
Dirt yard, yeah. And my community has grown to an amazing amount of knowledge and experience in the people around me. And I'm always learning. And I love permaculture.
There you go.
And yeah.
Say something, I need to cough.
You need to cough. Don and I are also the hosts of the leaders of the Phoenix Permaculture Design course. So we have an invested interest in getting people interested in this topic, because this is going to make a difference in Phoenix and
Make a
elsewhere.
difference in the world.
In the world,
And
yeah.
elsewhere, yeah.
Let's pull up the PowerPoint, Janice, because the
right.
first slide says it all.
I'm ready. Here we go. This is Introduction to Permaculture with Don Titmus, Janis Norton, and Greg Peterson. Are you all seeing this?
Yes, we are.
All right.
So I love this quote from Dr. David Suzuki. What permaculturists are doing is the most important activity that any group is doing on the planet. And stick around for the next 45 minutes to understand why.
Yeah. Okay, my space bar isn't doing it.
There you go. So permaculture is a derivative word of permanent and culture, permanent and agriculture. And I'm going to let Don talk about the design methodology piece.
Design methodology is a system of principles and ethics that are the filters through which we as designers, we're permaculture design course means that you become a designer of a home space or your own home area, or even, you know, a massive farm. It's everything, those principles and ethics apply no matter what scale you're working with. So it can be a apartment patio, or, you know, a huge acreage. It doesn't really matter too much. And when we put all those things together and we wrap it up into a nice package, you become a more holistic, more aware, more sustainable, hopefully more regenerative home site and lifestyle.
That word regenerative, that first showed up for me in '91 in my permaculture design course. That was a big aha moment for me.
Right.
And you have shared that with us in so many ways in all of the teachings that you do.
Woohoo, I'll take it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I like holistic and systems based. I'm going to jump in here because
Please.
I am a systems engineer of sorts. That's what I've been calling myself, because when you look at a system, it is something that has start to finish so many different little parts that create a process that creates an end result. But a holistic system is something that ends up going into a whole picture. And when you start looking at permaculture and seeing how everything is connected and interconnected and interdependent and interactive and all of that, it really opens your mind to possibilities. And that's the best part about coming out of permaculture education, is the eye-opening, mind-opening, possibility-creating inspiration. We can't hear you, Greg.
I was had a scratchy throat again, and so I muted myself. I said I gotta love that. First and foremost, permaculture is about observation. It's about observing your space, seeing what's working in the space, and growing from there. I like to call permaculture the art and science of working with nature. How do we work in the flow of nature rather than as human beings want to do work against nature? We think we can do it better than nature. I have news for you. We can't. Toby Hemingway, who we're going to be talking about in a little later, used to say, nature always bats last. Nature bats last. Nature will always win. So we have, as a human species, as a mammal on this planet, we need to figure out how to work in the flow of it. Janis, your definition?
You know, I really wanted to try and create something that spoke the way I do. And this is what I say. I mean, it is a way of life that emulates, intersects, and cooperates with the, and I used perpetual, and I want to take that out, but it's with the constantly regenerative systems of nature. But nature is perpetual, it's forever, and it's always regenerative. So working with that is going to be working with something that's going to be becoming a lifestyle, a solution.
Yeah. Don?
I love it all. There are so many definitions, and each permaculture teacher or permaculturist would come up with this, with something similar. But there's no one definition, because it is so holistic in nature and web oriented that all of them speak about what permaculture is for that person and for the way that they think and feel.
Yeah. You know, and it can adapt as we as individuals grow and change. Our own definition can grow and change too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, ready?
All right. Yeah, we got to get moving because we've got a lot to present.
One important thing is it's not only about gardening or composting. And it's not just something that you do.
It's the journey. That's
that's good.
Yeah, Steve Jobs always used to talk about, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And permaculture is the journey. So will you say a little bit about this, Don?
Yeah, we never get to the destination. It's always the journey.
Yeah.
Because nature is always evolving and adapting and correcting itself. And as permaculturists, that's what we should be doing. And that's part of what you spoke about in the beginning. The observation is how we can react and act and within our particular environment. And so it's always being reviewed.
Awesome, thank you. And permaculture ethics. This is our permaculture premise. Would you give me 1 minute on this? Because this is a lifelong journey here. But
I'm a citizen of the earth. I was born on the earth. I happen to be born near London, England, but that's part of the whole globe. So I consider myself an earth steward, because I'm here on the whole earth. The water, the wind, everything circumnavigates the whole globe. We're not disconnected, we're all connected. And so that leads, if we care for the earth, it will care for us. And then we can care for other people because we have other resources, we have other skills, we have other knowledge that we can do that. And in doing those two things in the beginning, we will absolutely care for our future. Our future will become more stable and more predictable if we care for those other two things first. So this is like integral and vital to the whole permaculture design practice.
Amen. Care for the earth, care of the people, and I like to say care of people and inhabitants, all things alive on the planet, and care for the future.
Absolutely.
All right.
Care for beings. Yes, beings.
And in any permaculture class or course that you take, you will go into this further.
Right.
Because this
And
is an
don't forget the
introduction
sweet
class.
spot where the target is.
That's all three overlap is permaculture.
All three overlap.
So this character in the top right here of the picture, that's Bill Mollison. He was a grumpy old man. Here we find him smiling. He and David Holmgren, who was on my podcast for 3 episodes about almost 2 years ago now. He and David Holmgren created permaculture in the early 70s. They're from down under in New Zealand. And so Mollison's principles, this is really important. Mollison's principles of design are intended to be applicable everywhere. The principles themselves you can use anywhere, while the practices vary from place to place. And these practices could even vary from one yard to the next.
Yep.
That's where the observation piece of this comes in. All right, what's the next one, Janice?
Heck, they can change from the front yard to the backyard.
There you go.
So we're going to go over the 8 permaculture principles tonight. That these are a variation or pretty close to what Bill Mollison teaches. And these are the ones that
Taught. He's no longer with us.
Sorry, taught. Bill Mollison is gone, as is Toby. So #1, Craig, do you want to do that one? This is your favorite.
Actually, why don't you just review them real quickly and then we'll get into the slides.
Okay. #1 is observation. And basically that's seeing with nature's eyes. #2 are elements. And the elements within must have many functions. We're going to go over this more. #3, work with nature rather than against it. #4, the problem is the solution, and you're going to think beyond the box. #5, make the least change for the greatest possible effect. This is actually an effective conservation of energy. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. This is where the lazy gardener farmer comes in at.
Right. #6, the yield of a system is potentially unlimited. #7, web effect. Everything has an impact on its environment. And #8, information and imagination intensive. Set no limits on possibilities or ideas.
And Janice, yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. I was going to talk about the garden gods and possibilities.
Right?
Observations. I have often said, and Don, I don't know if I've told you this yet, but I had a unique opportunity to eat my own words.
Yeah.
But for the last couple of decades, I've said spend at least a year on a property in a new space before you make any changes. For you, those of you that don't know it, I lived in Phoenix for 54 years. I lived in the same house, the urban farm, for 32 years. And Heidi and I, my partner Heidi and I, picked up and moved from Phoenix, Arizona, 1,950 miles to Asheville, North Carolina in April. This was a long time planning. I've been planning this in my mind for at least 15 years. And so we landed here on 4 acres. I'm in the middle of 4 acres right now. And the picture behind me is, what picture is behind me? Oh, that's the picture of from the urban farm in Phoenix. And so I have 4 acres here and I'm observing. I had to put a few things in place right away, like a fence to keep the dog in the backyard. And I put in my first garden. We arrived here on April 22nd, and I put in my first garden that next weekend in pots, and it was a miserable failure. I was going to say a miserable success. I guess we could say it that way. And it just in big part, from the soil perspective. I hadn't observed the soil. I just figured if I got some good planted soil in bags and mixed it in the ground, and that would be enough. And it wasn't, because we have very dense soil here. So observation absolutely is the first premise of permaculture. Spend time paying attention. Don't make any major changes. When you move into a property, don't cut down the trees immediately. Both Janice and I have had experiences with this. People bought the house and they cut the trees down
Our neighbors.
without understanding what those trees were doing for the space, the first
Yeah.
couple of weeks. So observe. What's number 2?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Janice.
In observation, I had just finished a permaculture design course, and I moved into my house, and I thought I thought of everything. And I didn't. I missed a couple key elements. I ended up planting and then having to unplant some trees. And what I took away from that is, yeah, I really do need to take my time and observe, but also don't beat yourself up for not observing, for missing something. Just go ahead. You can do it again. Number 2, how do we observe our whole landscape?
That's a good question. Go ahead, give us the question too, Janice.
Elements must have many functions, and how many functions can each asset serve?
I'm gonna jump in here, Don, because this is my favorite. It's called stacking functions.
Yeah.
And
Can
stacking.
you explain elements first?
Okay, go.
So an element in permaculture design is a feature. Let's say feature. Like for here, we got an outdoor kitchen, or it might be your solar panels, or it might be where your chicken coop is, or it's an element, a functional aspect, feature in your landscape or homescape. And then now Greg dives in.
There you go. And elements for me I call them assets as well. They're things that work the space. It's an opportunity. So what you're seeing in this picture is an old dead grapefruit tree. And that old dead grapefruit tree it was alive until 2004 in my backyard at the urban farm. In 2004, it died, but at that same time, a grapevine started growing in it. And you'll see a picture here in a little while of the grapevine fully leafed out and shading the back patio. This is a western exposure. So that old dead grapefruit tree, which normally most people would have taken out, cut down, I used as a structure to hold up the grapevine to shade the back patio. So it became an element or an asset that served many functions. For the first 70 years of its life, it made shade and made fruit. And for the last 15 years of its life, it looked like this, and shaded the back patio and held up a grapevine that made lots of food.
Gorgeous natural scaffold. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So this is one thing you will definitely dive into deeply in your permaculture studies. If you're doing a permaculture design course, it's a key piece of the course. And I know Toby talks about it in Permaculture City. All right, next, there we go. Well, I don't know what else we can say about this. Just I said it. Go ahead, Janice.
You're working with nature rather than against it. And, there's so many things where we think we can control nature. And instead of trying to stop what nature is doing, we work with it and let it flow through our systems. We're going to end up benefiting from it. And you can do this by noticing patterns, by noticing cycles, by observing what is happening in your space and taking advantage of what is naturally occurring. There's a lot of complication to that. We go in any permaculture class or course that you go into that will be developed a lot further. You can have discussions and see what happens with it. But the important thing is that nature already has a cycle for every natural element. and already
Yeah,
has a pattern for how to move these elements through the space. And if you're mimicking what nature has already successfully created, you're going to have better, easier results.
Yeah.
More beautiful too.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's go because we've got to get,
I know.
we've got a lot to get through. So thank you. The problem is the solution. Think outside of the box. You want to talk about that, Don?
Oh, I love the problem is the solution, because
I
you
know.
know, 9 times out of 10 that the solution to the problem is what's happening. The problem, okay, you got no space to grow. Well, this chap right here has decided, they said, okay, well, I'm just going to put 2 rows of buckets and I'm going to grow plants in each one, and I'm going to grow my own food on my walkway to and from my apartment door.
Yay. I wrote a whole book about this. Grow wherever you go. It's one of my many
Right.
books. Yeah.
Right.
And the fun thing is that thinking outside the box, if you're not used to doing it, you work with others, you collaborate, and you can come up with some great ideas, which is actually another principle later on. But if you start to get stopped with a problem, if a problem is a challenge or a hurdle, if you put it aside and look at it from a different direction, you can see how it can be a benefit. Don't have a lot of space, you don't have enough room to create a nice big shower for yourself, give yourself an outdoor shower. Yay. You know, there's so many different things, and we can come up with a million different examples, probably. Just not enough time to do it in this particular webinar. But yeah, it's looking at something from a different direction will give you a new perspective.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I just want to say, take note that permaculture is not just about gardening. Permaculture is a holistic, and we said this earlier, it's a holistic system where you look at your entire system where you're living and make it work inside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Make the least change for the greatest possible effect. This is where the lazy gardener comes in. And the cool thing for me about this particular piece is I worked the property at the urban farm for 32 years. And somebody asked me recently what I miss the most about being in Phoenix. And, you know, my community is a huge missing for me. But what I miss the most is the edible landscape that I put in place over 32 years at the urban farm. Mm-hmm. I literally ate out of the yard every single day, multiple things. And I don't have that. And I don't have that yet. And what I know is that the systems that I put in place, it took a little bit more effort up front, but the systems that I put in place up front over 32 years made things happen, like parsley and nasturtiums. There were literally hundreds of different things that came up every year at the urban farm that I hadn't planted in decades. And it's because I took on, all right, how can I make the greatest possible effect over time?
Yeah. And by going slow, by taking it a little step at a time, you're going to be able to give yourself the chance to envision different solutions and mm-hmm. think about how it's going to be affected during the different seasons, during the different times of the year. When you have a windy storm, if you can come up with a really good example of a solution for a particular area of your yard, but then you give yourself the time, you might see that solution is only going to work for a week or 2 of the year. But if you tried something else, this other solution, because you realize there's a different element over here that's giving a different challenge, but was actually a solution, you can create something that's going to be easier on you in the long run. And by not rushing, by not running into a solution that isn't going to be as satisfactory as you want, you're not wasting money or time or energy having to redo something. So
Amen.
And making the least change for the greatest possible effect is a conservation of energy.
Big
It
time.
really is.
Oh, okay. So first of all, let's talk about this. This is that old dead grapefruit tree in my backyard. And this is a decade later, because that picture that you saw in the earlier in the slide was with the tree after it had just passed away in 2004. This was like 2012, looking from a different direction. Look how much shade those grapes provided. And we used to get about 40 pounds of grapes off of this tree, which was absolutely amazing.
Your grapefruit tree became a grape tree. I
Exactly.
remember being at your backyard and having a tour, and the look on one lady's face when you were talking about this, and then all of a sudden she realized the scaffold was a dead tree, and everything that was green up above her was not that tree. It was something else. It was amazing that her awareness and her understanding at that point was beautiful.
Well, and then I took it one step further. I actually took the poles, these long branches, when the tree, because the tree in 2014 finally fell over. It finally rotted away. And I took the poles and I used them to hold up the patio structure that I put on the patio.
The problem was the solution.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I had a dead tree there. What do I do with it? I cut it in pieces, and they were like 10-foot poles that I used to hold up the structure so that old dead grapefruit tree served from the 1920s to 2014 when it finally fell over, and now it's going to serve another 50 years. And now we're not even talking about the yield of a system was potentially unlimited. Why don't you talk about that, Don?
Oh, this is where the minds coming together. This is the collaborative things. So the yield of a system. I might go in and I might design something, and then I'd have you follow me and you say, oh, well, this could be added here and that could be added over there, and then, oh, but what about this right here? We can do this over here, and it will make it so much better. So the yield of the system being unlimited means that sometimes you have to get out of your own way and allow more input, not necessarily from other people, but it might be a podcast you listen to, it might be a YouTube video you watch, it might be some other expert in another country, a book or whatever it is. You get inspired, you say, oh, I want to try that, let's see if it works. So you can keep doing that, and it's imagination and information intensive.
We haven't got to that one yet.
Those come also into play with the yield of the system. So the principles don't stand alone. All the principles come together as a package. That's the holistic nature of it.
Yeah.
Which is a fabulous segue.
Well, I was going to say,
thank you very much.
and I've said this for decades, that the only place that lack lives is between our ears, because when you look at the abundance, the sheer amazing, mind-blowing abundance that comes off of apple trees, or the amount of seeds that come out of carrots, it's just mind-blowing.
Right.
And based on that segue that Don had earlier, the web effect, where everything has an impact on its environment, everything is connected. Right. And for those of us who are in touch with our feminine mind, where we touch and control everything that we're talking about, it's a little bit easier for some of us to understand. But those of you who are linear, you're going to be a little bit tested to start thinking outside that linear thought process.
Oh, yeah.
If you consider what a spider web is like, and how if you touch one little web over on one end and the other end is jingling, that is what is happening in nature, because every element is connected to every other element in the space and outside that space that you're working. And the nice thing about that is that there are so many natural, renewable systems and services that, like this thing says, that are already in place somehow, even if you're working with a bare dead backyard like I was, you can find it, and things are going to be connected. The nice thing about permaculture is that when you start looking at this, and when you are challenged to start working on a web process, you're going to start seeing things differently. And I would challenge anybody who's taken a permaculture course to deny this. But after that first couple of days, when you've had that experience to be looking at how interconnected we are, you're going to start seeing that everywhere.
Don, you're shaking your head madly.
He's agreeing.
I agree. Totally on it.
And number 8 is all about you, Don. So why don't you tell us
Yeah,
about that?
you got that right. Yeah, I love to like reinvent things. Like for me, like an example, right? I took a shower filter that goes onto the shower, and then you put the cartridge in, and then you put the sprinkler bit back on the other end. Well, I took that and I put it in my irrigation system, my drip system, and my spray system. So from the valve comes down into the ground, and then I put the filter in, and then it went out to the garden, and I took out the chlorine, because I do not want chlorine anywhere near my plants and my soil. I want regenerative soil, not dead soil. Thank you very much.
Right.
I needed it. There are some things you just need to say, no way, Jose. No, it's not coming anywhere near my garden.
Right.
And so information sets you on the right path. Imagination is the creative juices flowing, and say, well, just like you did, you took a tree that was dead, and it's like, oh, I could take it down and it can be firewood. Right? It would be a second use, or a third use, or a fourth use. But you said, no, it's going to be a trellis. It's going to be a structure for me to trellis the vine above. And you even added a bit of swimming pool fence, didn't you? Over to the patio.
Yes, that was
so it wasn't just the tree, it was also a piece of metal
fencing
pool fence that went over and attached to the patio where the guttering was, where the rain came down, and that went right over the sink and right over the patio area where food production, food cleaning from the garden happened before it come into the house. So then the water went straight out into the garden and fed the plants out in the garden. There was no waste there, no pollution. So these things, when it all gets combined in, and like the whole earth as a living being is, that's what we're creating on our home sites. We want to create a living being as our home site, which is as regenerative as we can, and therefore as sustainable as possible.
Yes, I agree completely. And the neat thing about permaculture is there are so many people who have done different little things, and so many imaginative ideas that have been implemented, that you can find a solution times 100 times for all the different problems that are out there. And by sharing and working together and collaborating, thank you, I got to it, and collaborating, you would get a chance to come up with some solutions that'll work for you. Now, Don is a super permy guy who has been doing this for decades. Greg is too. The two of them are a lot more experienced and established in the permaculture process, and the space that they have reflects on their lifestyle. I live in an HOA. I have a husband who is absolutely offended if a vegetable will hit his plate. But what I have created in my space is a permaculture oasis within an HOA that works within the limitations of the space that I have. and the lifestyle that I have that creates with my husband. And I had the problem is my solution. I had very limited ability to do as maximum that Don created, but I was still able to create something that was gorgeous by using what I had.
Yeah. Amen to that. And it is. If you get an opportunity, if you're in Phoenix, and when Janice does a tour of her place, if you get an opportunity to see it, go see it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you end up going in the PDC course, you'll end up going because several of the days end up happening at my
Oh,
house.
yeah. We
Perfect.
have an interactive experience PDC for you guys. Just waiting.
Just
Get
waiting.
ready.
All right,
Now,
what's the next
what we've
slide?
just gone through is the 8 basic principles of the Bill Mollison in the permaculture. And these become the core of your permaculture experience. These become the mindsets, the awakenings, the principles, the foundation of all the things that you're going to end up learning and trying and growing and building after your permaculture course.
Yep.
So where do you go from here, Greg?
Well, that's a good question. I highly recommend, if this piques your interest, to investigate whether there is a permaculture design course in your area. A permaculture design course is well, actually, that's on the next slide, isn't it? So we suggest that you invest in yourself and keep learning. One of the things, y'all may know that I do a podcast called the Urban Farm Podcast. We have over 740 episodes that we've published in 7 years. And a big part of the reason that I do them is because I keep learning. I love to learn. I learn something new every time I do a podcast. So keep learning. I'm a lifelong learner and a lifelong teacher. We at Urban Farm U have online courses. We've got Toby's course that we're going to tell you about in a little while. You can take in-person classes and courses, podcasts, there's books, community, all this, plug into your permaculture community in your area. There's a page just for Asheville for permaculture, surprise, surprise. So I've been interacting there since I arrived. So
and if you go to our website, I mean, if you're interested in doing something with us, you go to our website and you just type in the word permaculture in the search bar, you will start to see some of our permaculture podcasts and courses and education and pages and everything. But we have so many podcasts that are tying into permaculture. You'll find something that will interest you.
surprise, surprise, because that's, I live a permaculture life. All right, what's the next slide, Miss Janice? Toby's course. So Toby Hemingway wrote Gaia's Garden. Gaia's Garden is the top selling, still to this day, the top selling year over year book on permaculture on the planet. He wrote it. He also wrote a book called Permaculture City. And from the book called Permaculture City, Toby created a course that we recorded when he was still alive. He passed away in 2015 from cancer, unfortunately. And he created and we recorded this class called Creating Your Permaculture City, 7 Steps to Ecological Abundance. And I feel really privileged to have known him and call him a friend. He and I talked regularly, and to have his teaching in this format is mind-blowing for me. It's like, wow, how cool is this? So I think there's another slide on this, is there not, Janice?
There is.
This is Toby. He was the author of Gaia's Garden and won some awards and was the most knowledgeable permaculture person I think I've ever met. We had him in town multiple times for multiple events, and he was just amazing. Do you have anything to share about Toby, Don?
I don't have a personal experience with him. I know that, he's, I've utilized all the wisdom that I had in his first book. I'm still working my way through the second book, but yeah, one of the most learned, educated permies on the planet.
Yeah. And he was an engineer. That's what his training was in. So he took that and built a couple of great, amazing books. So, and the third slide, Janice. All right. So we have this course, Creating Your Permaculture City with Toby Hemingway, completely taught by him. I was kind of there in the background, directing and moderating a little bit. There's 9 pre-recorded online classes. You can attend them at your leisure. There's structured downloadable content. There's videos, webinar links, PDFs, a list of books and other programs to help you with your experience. This is not, however, a replacement for a permaculture design course. We're going to talk about what a permaculture design course is on the next course. When you sign up for this course, you get access to our Urban Farm Facebook group and tons of extra content and resources, including ebooks and all kinds of stuff. There's an amazing amount of information. What's the next slide, Janice?
Well, that's when we start talking about how to get this course. And if you go to permaculturecity.com, you can register today and it's $100 off.
Yeah.
This is a phenomenal deal right in time for the holidays. If you wanted to do it as a gift, you can buy this and then send an email to support@urbanfarm.org or to Greg or myself, and we'll go ahead and change the name on the course. You buy it in your own name, and then let us know who you want to give it to, and we'll create a process where you can get that given to them. But it's a fabulous, fabulous packed education course.
Now, in order to get the $97
There's a special
course, there's a special code. You need to put in holiday 50, holiday 50 in the coupon code or the promo code space. So this is available. I mean, I just feel incredibly blessed that we were able to capture this in its entirety and have it available past his being on the planet. So it does come with a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're interested. But interestingly enough, I don't think we've ever had anybody ask for money back on any of our courses. So,
and the nice thing is it stays in your folder, basically in your portal.
Yeah,
you can keep looking at it.
All right.
And then if you're interested in a actual permaculture design course in Phoenix, Don and I are the host teachers. You can go to urbanfarm.org/PDC. And the spring 2023 course starts on February 11th and it concludes on April 23rd. This is an in-person course that's 10 days during the time frame, and it's a lot of great learning. We got some good people in it.
Hold on, go back. Because I want to talk about what a PDC is, or permaculture design course. Don, can you tell us what a PDC is?
So this is a standardized certified course that requires 72 hours of class style instruction with all kinds of charrettes and games and different fun things, tours, all kinds of things to embellish the content of the course. So in that way, it's experiential. So you will attend the class at a location, and then you will see all of their features, all of their elements that are part of their design. You will talk to the owner of that place, and the owner will guide you through their process. You will come to my house. My house is one of the on the schedule, and it features all the rainwater harvesting. We can go to someone else's place, Cecilia's, and we can look at market garden design strategy and chickens, like loads of chickens. And she's a farmer's market seller, and so we want to make it as dynamic and as interesting and as empowering as possible.
And so many
within the
different varieties of
parameters that
places.
we are given.
Yeah, and lots of different places to learn from, so you're not limited to just one space.
No,
And this is not a sit-down lecture course. This is a jump in and actively participate. There are, I hesitate to call them games, but there are games that are played.
interactive classes.
Interactive
Yeah.
classes that, if you're not in the Phoenix area, Tucson has one.
Yes,
If you're in the Asheville area, Asheville has one.
Almost every large regional area has something.
yeah.
Laura says, okay, should I do PC City first or do the permaculture course here in Phoenix also?
Let's watch the next slide.
Let's watch the next slide. There you go. So if you sign up for the 2023 Phoenix Permaculture Design course, we will be including a introduction to permaculture book. This is the book that you need for the course.
Mhm.
It's about what, a $70 book or something like that.
Between 50 to 70, depending where you get it.
Yeah, and it includes Toby's online Permaculture City course, which is a great addition to the learning. And what I would suggest that you do is, if you're signing up for the Permaculture Design course, do Toby's class before your course starts. That'll give you a
Heads up,
leg up
a leg
on,
up.
yeah. I also like to say limb up. That'll give you a limb up on that. So, right. And I think there's one more slide, right, Janice? All right, great. So for creating your permaculture city, go to permaculturecity.com and put in the
Holiday 50.
holiday 50 for your promotional price. That goes in the promo code arena. And if you are interested in the Phoenix Permaculture Design course, you can go to urbanfarm.org/PDC. And I'll throw this out here also. If you are wanting to have a conversation about being in the Phoenix Permaculture Design course and want to chat with me or Don or Janice for that matter, just let us know and we would be more than happy to set up a call with you.
Yeah. Yes, and this program tonight was a free program. We are here to excite you, get some intriguement going on about what's going on, what happens in your own space. You can go into a permaculture course and come out of it with a new awareness of what's happening. But the nice thing about a permaculture design course is you'll team up with others and you can create a design by the end of the course to use these principles and these concepts in implementing changes in a space. And if your design wants to be on your personal property, you can do that. If you were going to work on somebody else's property, you can do that. It will be a course that you're going to stand up in front of the group and give a little presentation. And we're going to help you do that too. So it's fun. Now, the one other thing I want to tell you is this particular course, this particular webinar tonight, this is something that Greg and Don and I do, a commitment to our communities. But if you wanted to kind of give us a little love for doing it, if you're not going to be able to go to the course and you're not going to be able to take the PDC, but you still want to support us while we're doing this, you can do that. I am putting in the chat room a link to our webinar donation page on our store, or you can go to store.urbanfarm.org/webinar-donation. So webinar donation, you can just search that up under webinar in our store and you can just give us a little love. It kind of helps make this work, because Greg and I have spent several hours redoing this and upset and creating it. And Don's got so many years of experience putting our education together too. We just love doing it, but it feels good sometimes to know that it made a difference for you all too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So in a permaculture design course, we take you through Don and the team. I'm no longer involved with the one in Phoenix. I'll probably be involved with one here in Asheville at some point. But the team takes you through a process to rethink how we live on the planet. And so that's the large scope, and a process of how to actually create a design. So there is an end product from this that that's a takeaway that you can do your design. So what are those links again, Janice? Permaculturecity.com.
And you're going to use code holiday50, permaculturecity.com for holiday 50, or urbanfarm.org/PDC. And if you are interested in the permaculture design course, you can reserve your spot with a little deposit of $200.
Right. Make a gift to yourself
Yeah.
and your future and your children's future, and grandchildren's future.
Right. I don't
That's
have
what
any.
we're here for.
Right. I don't have any kids, but that's why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah.
So we've got some questions.
I was just going to say, we can go to the questions.
Yeah, there's a few questions here. Is Toby the one who died? Yes, Toby passed away. I don't know whether he worked on the biggest little farm.
I
Do
don't
you?
either.
Yeah, I don't know if he did. He could have. He very well could have. Skip says, for those who do not live in Arizona, will Permaculture City course prepare one to design their backyard? Yes-ish. Permaculture City is a 9-session course on how to rethink how we live on the planet. And yes, it will definitely help. And hey, you got nothing to lose. If you're not happy in 30 days, we'll give you your money back. I'd gladly do that. But
It's a big picture. It's a community. It's about living in the permaculture community and large. It will affect what you do in your own space so that you are part of the community.
Yeah. Laura Vance says, are the garden tours for either Janice or Don scheduled? If so, where do we find the information? They're not scheduled yet. They will be scheduled probably in the spring. Late.
We both had
winter.
some family things go on that created a little difficulty in having our fall tours happen. But we're working on it.
Yeah. So usually we do the tours in March, April, and May. So if you signed up for here, if you're on our local list, you'll get an email when they happen.
Yeah. Well, what you can know is that if you look at the PDC schedule, we won't be having a tour that weekend.
Well, there you go.
We won't
Right?
be. We're too busy teaching.
Although if you're taking the permaculture design course, you're going to get a bunch of tours of a bunch of different people's.
My,
Oh,
yes.
I know.
Yep, exactly.
Every day
Exactly.
a tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
Laura says, I understand the importance of polycultures, but seem to feel stumped by what to use to make a polyculture. How do you make it? That's a big, deep dive of what we talk about in permaculture.
Yeah.
How did you begin to make a polyculture? What are some of the beginner mistakes you made that helped you learn and create a good system? Oh my God.
Natural. Look at the native plants in your area. That's one of the first places you can look, is to start educating yourself on the native plants in your area. And I'm not talking, if you're local to Phoenix, I'm not talking xeriscaping, because that's entirely different, but just educating yourself on the native plants. And then what we talk about, and you'll learn about this and more, is the systems of having multiple levels of plants that work together. What do we call
food forest?
No.
Yes, food forest is one polyculture.
No, there's another word. What did Kristen teaches?
Plant
the different layers.
Guilds.
Guilds, the different layers.
I just forgot about that word. Guilds. Developing a guild.
Megan B says guilds right before you said it, Jen.
Thank you.
That's part of the course.
Learning about a guild.
In fact, Kristen is one of the teachers in the course.
Absolutely.
We actually are going to expand a little bit in this episode than what we did last time, because we realized we didn't give enough time on guilds last time. But the guild is such an important concept, and to get ready, if you're not in our local area for our PDC, whatever PDC you go to, you're going to want to learn about the native plants and building a guild. That will give your first steps to developing an effective polyculture.
Yeah. All right, this is for you, Janis. Skip, he says, I live in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada. Checking soil moisture around foundation plants is nearly impossible due to the rocks just below the surface. Even rebar cannot get past them. What is the best way to work around this, please? What did you do with the landscape behind you, Janis?
All right. Well, what I personally did in order to create a space that was going to be able to work, because I had those rocks and the caliche, was I ended up developing an area that I built up. I took down as much rock as I could, and then I built up the soil. Now, that's not going to give you the solution if you already have the plants in the ground. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to effectively learn how your plants are communicating with you. And you're going to water your plants really deeply, and then you're going to wait until you've given enough time for that soil to start drying out, and look and see what your plants do. And as you start to see what they start to dry out, when they start to wilt, log what that time frame is. And that's what your time frame is for how fast soil is going to be using up your water. Now, another thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get some of your soil that does not have the rocks in it and do a soil test to determine what kind of soil you have. Because even though you have your rocks, do you have clay soil? Do you have sandy soil? It'll change how fast the water goes through. I love this topic, and I will gladly talk about it more during one of our tree chats. Or one of our garden chats. Come join us then, and I can talk about it some more then. I love this topic. I'll go on for 20 minutes on it, and we don't have 20 minutes.
Cool. Yeah, we can talk about this forever. So can you just bring up that last slide again, Janis?
I can. Give me a second.
Cool. So for the Permaculture City course, and yes, I think Laura asked if it was for beginners. It absolutely is a very understandable piece for beginners. That's why I actually suggest that before people do a PDC, they do Permaculture City. So go to permaculturecity.com, and you can read about more about the course there, and you can sign up. Use holiday 50 to get, it's a little more than 50% off of the cost of the course. It takes it from $197 to $97. If you are in Arizona and want to indulge in the permaculture design course, or the PDC, you can go to urbanfarm.org/PDC. That's going to happen over about a 3-month period on Saturdays and Sundays. We do them over the course of the weekend, so we'll do either 1 or 2 days on a weekend throughout that time period. If you are not in the Phoenix area,
however, hold on, before you go to the next one.
Yep.
If you go for the PDC, for the Phoenix PDC, you will also get the Permaculture City course and the introduction to Bill Mollison. We'll give that out in the first class.
Perfect. And the
introduction to permaculture.
Permaculture City will come out before, you'll get that soon.
Yeah, within the next week or so.
Within the next week or so. Perfect. And then if you're not in the within driving distance of Phoenix and want a permaculture design course, put the name of your city in and permaculture design course and see what comes up. You might
in
be
your
surprised.
Search engine. Yeah,
you might be surprised. Laura says
we're going to be handing out the physical book.
Yes, we will hand out the physical books, but Laura says, oh, is that the one I should sign up for? Well, Laura, so the permaculturecity.com is an online self-paced class. It's got 9 lessons and a whole bunch of resources with Toby. That's a good beginner space to start. If you are wanting to sign up for the permaculture design course, the Phoenix Permaculture Design course, it's a bigger investment in time and money.
It is a 72-hour in-person course.
It's
It
72.
will-
Yep.
It will happen in several different locations across the valley, as far as North Peoria to Mesa Tempe and in between. It is it is an investment in yourself, and you will come out of it with an idea of how to design a landscape in a permaculture concept, and so much more.
And think in a regenerative way.
Mhm.
Let me tell you a quick story. This will be my wrap up. I'm going to ask both Janice and Don for final thoughts, but it's 1991. I'm living at the urban farm. At that point, I'd lived at the urban farm for 2 years, and I walked out to the mailbox, and to this day, and I can presence this and be standing in the moment when this happened 32 years ago. Or 30 years ago, I walked to the mailbox, and somehow a flyer for the permaculture design course ended up in my mailbox, and I stood there reading it. I was enthralled, and I ran inside. I was married to Michelle at the time. I ran inside and I said, "Oh my God, Michelle, this is an amazing course. I'm going to sign up and take it." I signed up and got into it. I said, "Do you want to do it with me?" She said, "Absolutely." It's great if you can do it with your partner as well. And for me, what permaculture represented was a confirmation. I learned about it when I was 30 years old. It was a confirmation that the way that I think about living on the planet had a name. It's called permaculture. And for me, it changed my life forever. I regularly teach permaculture, talk about permaculture, and here I am 31 years after I took the course, and it's an amazing piece of my every single day life.
Now, I'm
Don?
only 20 years old, so I've been doing this for a little bit less time.
Janice, any final thoughts?
No, it changed my life, and I love it. And I love how I feel about my personal presence in the world.
Mhm. Awesome. Don?
For me, it made more sense of my life. So I was doing all kinds of things, and I was environmentalist already. I was working in the gardens, doing horticulture. I was just living, a life that camping, hiking, all kinds of things, all outside, outdoorsy. That's me to a T. And when I took the course, I had expectations, but then I had to leave them at the door because, by the time I got in, then, my world I was a linear thinker. My world just turned upside down, and, I had to, I know, mind blown. And I did it on a 14-day intensive. So I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I lived on the land for 14 days. I cooked there. I lived there in a tent. I took care of the chickens as part of my give back for the camping fee. And I just absorbed it all. But like most people, I came out of the course with just as many questions as I went into the course.
Of course.
And it took like 6 months for me to digest and mull things around and look at my landscape and say, oh yeah, I can do that thing, or I can do that thing, but I can't do that, so I have to do that somewhere else. So enlivened.
The beauty of it is that I've been studying permaculture now for 31 or 32 years, and I'm still that same way. Because especially now, because I'm in a brand new space.
Right. Yes, new adventure. Love it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's why I like going to do consults at people's houses,
right,
on their property. I just like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do this. Yeah, I love that. That's sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
Laura wants to know if the book from Bill Mollison is digital or physical. It will be a physical book.
Yes. We already answered that question. Yep.
All right.
And Deidre, join us in a tree chat. We can expand on your question for trees.
Yeah,
tree chats.
We do monthly tree chats. Yeah, We do monthly tree chats. She's asking for information on promoting quicker tree growth. I can honestly say, and I'll pat Janice and myself on the back,
What do I say, Greg?
it depends.
Yeah,
It does depend, but Janice and I and our team at the Urban Farm Fruit Tree Program have figured out how to most successfully grow fruit trees, grow plants. So yeah, join us for the
Tree chats.
yeah.
The next tree
Yeah.
chat will actually be in February. So
No,
next week.
no, we have one next week and one in
Next week.
January. In fact, Deirdre, you want to join us for the January tree chat because that's going to be a class called Planting, Watering, and Fertilizing. That
you go.
answers your exact question.
That's true.
So,
cool.
all right. Well, thank you much, Don. Always love working with you, Janice, and you too, man. You're amazing to work with, and a big part of our success for me being able to move to North Carolina is Janice and Don and the work that they're doing in Phoenix. So thank you, everybody. That's it. Go to permaculturecity.com and use the code holiday50 for 50% off, or if you're in the Phoenix area, Phoenix urbanfarm.org/PDC.
Yep.
All right.
We'll
Thanks,
see you in
guys.
one of our next
Fun.
courses.
Woo.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.